Welcome to OTR Debate, our off-the-record podcast where three lawyers debate all things while managing to find out how it all comes back to the law. My name is Mucci, I work in immigration, and I'll be the judge for this face-off of Netflix's two probably biggest battle royale sort of shows. I'm here with my buddy Lando.
I'm Lando, I'm a prosecutor.
And
I'm I do contract law.
And our debate today is those battle royales, Squid Game versus Alice in Borderland. Debaters, what side are you guys on?
I'm going to take Alice in Borderland. I love it, and it's a good show.
Okay. Please tell me more during the...
Yeah, I'm going to tell you a lot more.
and
Yeah, and I'm going to be defending Squid Game, and I love it, and it's a good show also.
So, great. Is there anything you guys want to get taken care of before we get started or address before the court?
Yeah, I do have a motion in limine, so a motion I want to bring up to the judge, the trier of the fact in this case.
I'm aware.
In that I want to bar any mention of Squid Game's main character dyeing his hair red. It's overly prejudicial. He's fucking cool. Like, it's red. It's just too prejudicial to my side.
He's just too cool for the other show, for your show?
He's too cool for this debate. So I want to bar any mention of it. Thank you.
Anything in response to that?
To be honest, I didn't even know he dyed his hair red because I can't see color that well. But, you know, I'm actually okay with it if you don't want to let that in.
All right. Well, I guess if there's no objection, I will allow this motion in limine so no one's going to discuss the main character's red hair. Okay.
Thank God.
I didn't plan on bringing it up at all, so I don't know.
You're really concerned about that. I didn't know it was such a big deal. All right. Well, okay. So if there's nothing else, we can just get started. But as always, this is how it'll work. These guys are going to do openings, and then I will ask them some questions, and then they'll do a brief closing, and then I will come to my decision. So you guys are ready?
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right, let's get started. So, Orlando, you want to start us out here up here in Wisconsin?
Yeah, we're at a cabin
and
having a good time and going to record this episode. Alice in Borderland is a Netflix show that's derived from a manga that was written and illustrated by Haro Aso. I think that's how you say his name. Ran from 2010 to 2016. Okay. It is one of the few manga anime adaptations that Netflix has that's actually successful and actually had a decent run. They tried Death Note, one of my favorite animes, one of the only ones I've seen, and they just it didn't hit.
You didn't like Light Turner?
No, I mean
in Seattle,
Light Turner. So the Netflix adaptation has the main character Arisu, who's this gamer character that pretty much is like somewhat of a bum, somewhat of a drainage on his family. His brother is like the golden child, and he's just kind of like a sort of outcast to the world, someone that's kind of draining society. Him and his two friends get pulled into this parallel universe, parallel version of Tokyo, where they essentially they're forced to play these sadistic games where they're essentially fighting for their lives. And it's all based around a deck of cards where, they have a certain amount of time to live if they don't play these games. And every time they win a game or compete in a game, their visas, their time in the world gets extended because they played that game. So just if I could run through them really quick: spades, physical games; clubs, teamwork games; diamonds, battle of wits; and hearts is based around trust and betrayal. We see all those kind of games that are played with Arisu, his two friends, and then hundreds of other people that are in this parallel Tokyo. So it's an exciting, show, manga that came out way before Squid Game. So yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, and Squid Game?
Yeah, so Squid Game is a Netflix series as well. It's from South Korea. It came out in 2021, and it became Netflix's most watched series worldwide. It was number one in 94 countries, and extremely popular. Basically, it centers around somewhat of an ensemble cast, but the main character is his name is Gihun, and he gets approached by the stranger to enter into this secret game, which is revealed to be a challenge with 456 contestants who are all experiencing really rough financial hardship in their lives for a number of different reasons. But ultimately, the winner of this game, last one standing out of the 456, would win 45.6 billion won, which is roughly a little less than $35 million with today's conversion rate. And it'd be life-changing for all these people. But the challenge consists of many games, such as it's similarly to Alice in Borderland. A lot of them are children's games. That have deadly consequences. So, for example, things like tug of war, red light, green light, the titular Squid Game, which is probably not really known outside of Korea, but was introduced to
it is now.
Yeah. Although many people might think of it as this
made-up game.
It's always been played like that.
Just children going at it.
If someone's unfamiliar with tug of war and thought it was like in Squid Game, where you're like over a giant pit.
You fall to your death. Right.
Okay, so in these shows, is there a key bit of social commentary or a theme that's explored in the show? And what is that theme? And how does your show explore that? Whoever wants to start can start.
I can go.
Okay.
So, the creator of Squid Game, his name is Hwang Dong-hyuk. He really created this idea initially because of his own economic struggles and kind of with the class disparity in South Korea tied with capitalism. But what I really want to talk about now is just humanity in general, which I think the show does a good job of exploring. Despite all of these characters being in really tough financial situations and hardships and finding out that they're in this game, that they're going to lose their lives, or potentially will lose their lives, really, can put all aside and still bond and create, not necessarily factions, but like, they help each other out a lot. And I think, being able to understand and empathize with each other, through hardships is something that I really appreciate about humanity. And I think one of the scenes that I really liked the most, and that was really heart-wrenching for a lot of viewers, is there's a scene towards the end of the show where the characters are playing this marble game. And there are two girls who are partnered with each other. One, her name is Sebyok, and she's an escapee from North Korea who escaped to South Korea for the chance of bringing her family over and just the promise of a better life. And she's paired with another girl named Ji-young, and she had killed her abusive stepfather, I believe, and just was released from prison, so she wants this money. Basically, the partners in this game, there's going to be a winner and a loser, and the losers are going to be killed. So what happens in this scene, they're throwing these marbles to try and get it closest to another marble, and Ji-young kind of just sacrifices herself because she realizes, like, hey, Sebok, you have so much more to look forward to in life. You're trying to bring your mother and your brother down from North Korea, and I have nothing left to live for. So let me just play badly at this game, and she does, and she gets terminated. And I think for someone who is desperate, who also went through tough times, being abused by her stepfather, killing him, and going to prison, and finally being let free, to still look at someone else who's also going through hardships and make a decision that she thinks is best for her and for her partner, really encapsulates what the show is all about, of humanity.
All right, and Lando, are your examples as depressing as that one?
I mean, yeah, actually, they are, because they're very similar shows in that they are basically, the shows are illustrating humanity in all forms. So what Alice in Borderland does is they talk about different concepts, different themes of morality. So the games pit the contestants against each other, some of them being friends, much like Squid Game. And there's several scenes where, you do see someone having to either choose themselves or their friends in certain scenes, certain games that they're playing. But it actually also tackles certain other things. So it tackles morality in that, how are you going to play these games? Are you going to play it like an asshole and fucking try to kill everybody? Are you going to try to help everybody? Because the games are different than Squid Game in that they don't really know that they're going to be the only one. Like in Squid Game, they already know that there's going to be like one winner, or at least at some point they know that there's going to be one winner. But in Alice in Borderland, there's a sense of teamwork somewhat for some games, because they think that maybe, together we could possibly survive this, and if we just band together. Then they face choices where that becomes impossible within the games. It also touches on basically the purpose of life. In season 2, not to get too far ahead, but in season 2 they address. There's a lot of different scenes where Ersu meets certain characters and different characters that kind of have him examine what the purpose of life is and what their purpose on Earth is. And by that point, these characters have kind of already accepted that they're in these games. They have to play these games. At each game, they're probably going to die. And so they start examining, like, what is the purpose of my life? What am I doing here? Those kind of things. And the show also touches on fairness and justice. Particularly, there's a game. It's in season 2, episode 6. In the manga, it's a little bit different. I believe in that
version of the story.
Version is they have like a noose or something, and they're in like a poker table, and I think they're playing poker. In the show, they're around they're at a round table, and there's like a vat of acid above them, and essentially they have to play this number game. It's very like mathy. That I was watching, I was like, I don't know what the hell. Like, I would be out first. Like that shit would burn me right away. But essentially, it talks that episode's very interesting in that it brings up a concept of, does someone that is born with, maybe more than others, does justice mean that, the playing field should be evened out for the people that don't have what they were born with? Or, if that person was born with these abilities or this circumstance, should that just play a part in the world, and that's where they are, that's their status, and the others just kind of have to deal with it. And it's just a very interesting and good episode all around.
Yeah, I think like Alice in Borderland seemed to be a few more of these kind of logic puzzle sort of games, like the one where I was trying to puzzle out, and you've seen more of it than I have, but the one where there was the water that would rise and electrocute them all because it would hit these like exposed wires. Right. And you could flip these switches to turn this light bulb on, but you could only flip some of them if the door was closed versus open. And I was just trying to figure out logic that one. And obviously it was like sort of a test for the main character because he figured it out. But it was just like, I was like, how? It's you sit there and going like, okay, how does this work? Whereas in Squid Game, it's kind of like more like physical games, and I mean some kind of like emotional. Manipulations that have to happen in certain circumstances. So, and
they all differ because in Alice in Borderland, like I said, the different suit matches up with the different type of game. True. So some of them are logic based, some of them are teamwork based, and some of them are just purely physical. And it just depends. I mean, the characters get to go around Tokyo and choose what kind of game they go to, and the level of difficulty is scored by the number. So it's like 2 to 10 determines the difficulty, and essentially they're trying to get these cards and maybe get out of this parallel Tokyo.
Okay, so with that, then since we have these life and death situations, tons of characters that at least in the start of the show that get whittled down and die, how does the show make you care about these characters, or does it? When so many of them are going to die and that going in?
I mean, I could talk about one of the games that I know when I was watching it, I really thought that this was going to happen later on. But Arisu goes into this parallel Tokyo, and once they enter the first game, like, they're kind of fucked. Like, they have these visas that their life span is, you know, measured by how many games they play, so they have to keep playing these games, and once they figure out that there's deadly consequences, they just have to keep doing it, and eventually they come to one where, you know, everyone that's involved in the game, not to spoil anything, but everyone that's involved in the game, they're going to be fucked. It's like a tag game where
Well, they're going to be killed, right? Not
right. I mean, yeah. No, I think that'd be a little bit better for some characters if that was the case. One character one person is a wolf, and the rest of them are sheep. And then they're kind of just chasing the wolf, and you don't want to be the wolf, because if you're if you survive and you're the wolf, like, you're the only one that's going to survive. If you're the sheep and the wolf doesn't get tagged or something like that, you know all the sheep survive.
Hide and seek.
Hide and seek.
But right.
And so, you know, these characters that develop friendships and stuff like that, they bond within this time, and, you know, they face this game where Arisu becomes the wolf, and, you know, you're looking at an episode where Arisu's the wolf, and he needs to survive for the show. It's very early on in the show. I think it's like the third episode or something.
He's Alice.
He's Alice, yeah. And it's just very heart-wrenching to watch when essentially his friends are pretty much accepting what's going to happen, and much in the same way that we described in Squid Game, it's one of those, Arisu, you of all people can win this whole thing. We don't know what this is, because it's very mysterious as to where they are, what they're doing, and who set up all this. But if anyone's going to be able to beat these games, it's going to be you. You need to survive. You need to carry on, essentially. So it's a very, you know, traumatic thing that carries on throughout the whole show. I mean, this episode happens very early on in the first season. I think it's the third episode, but it carries on until the second season, and, you know, flashbacks and all this stuff. And so yeah, it's very like I said, it's one of the themes throughout the show is this friendship and that he has with these characters. So
yeah, and I think for Squid Game, at least, the backstory of so many characters really compels you to root for them. You know, I mentioned Sebuk earlier, who defected from North Korea to try and get a better life for her and her family. But one character that I think resonated with a lot of folks, his name's Ali, and he's an immigrant from Pakistan who's working in South Korea.
I thought he was going to win.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he was really good at the games, despite not growing up in South Korea and being familiar with a lot of them, like some of the other most of the other characters.
He didn't even know the language,
right? He was pretty good at Korean, actually.
Okay.
But
I was definitely just making that up.
But you know
what the fuck they were saying.
He was working in South Korea, and his wages were being withheld by his employer for months. And I think, you know, for people who have visited South Korea or have lived there for extended periods of time and are not Korean, you know, it's very obvious that Korea is a very homogenous society that is primarily made of South Koreans, rightfully so. I mean, it's an island, you know, or like not an island, but it's a peninsula that's kind of isolated. And historically, there just haven't been a lot of, like, you know, foreigners. And, you know, it's clear in the show he's being discriminated against by his employer. He doesn't really have other methods of remedying that situation. So he joins the game, and, you know, he has a wife and a new baby, and he's trying to make up his lost wages and just, you know, have a better life for his family. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, he is really good at the games. Throughout the show, I think he really is trying to prove himself, and they let him. And early on, he's kind of established as one of the core group of friends that makes it pretty far along. And I think for him being a trusting foreigner, to be somewhat ultimately deceived by someone who's playing the game also, it really is just like I mentioned, compelling, because, you know, the show was so internationally popular, and a lot of people maybe could see themselves in Ali going through a tough situation, trying to provide for their family, and being betrayed because you're too trusting of a person, or naive maybe.
I'm too naive. Too trusting. I probably am too trusting.
But besides that, besides Ali too, there is a subplot in Squid Game also of a police officer who his brother goes missing, and he enters the game to try and find his brother as well. And I think that's another, way that the show really keeps viewers on the edge of their seats, basically, because you want to know what's next. With a lot of cliffhangers, as per kind of the norm for K-dramas to always end episodes on cliffhangers. But that's just another way that the show Squid Game really keeps its viewers engaged.
Okay.
And that's why we're doing this episode, right? Because both at time of record, they've announced both series are going to get another season. So Alice in Borderland is going to get season 3. Squid Game is going to get season 2. And the cliffhanger in Squid Game, from what I remember, was that he dyed his hair red.
I thought you can't bring that up.
Yeah, it counts.
This was your motion eliminated.
Yeah, that's right.
It was just so fucking cool.
Just had to bring it
at the
up.
airport, why did he dye his hair red? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, and I mean, I think going on that too, I mentioned all of these kind of noble characters that have desires to win this money for good reasons, as good as capitalism can get. But for Gi-hun, the main character that opposing counsel has mentioned something he shouldn't have mentioned,
Right.
i.e. his red hair. He enters the game because he is in a lot of gambling debt, and his daughter is somewhat estranged because his ex-wife is remarried and is going to take the daughter to the United States, and so he's trying to prove that he's financially stable enough to keep his daughter in Korea with him. And so the cliffhanger that Orlando's mentioning is, he's about to go on an airplane, and then he just decides not to get on the plane because his hair's red now. He's like, my hair's red, I gotta stay in Korea.
What was the purpose of this motion in limine? We're just going to talk about it.
We're going to talk about it, but you can't consider it.
Okay, I won't consider it, I guess. So I'll just blip all that out of my mind. Before we get toward the end here, I just wanted to remind everyone to follow on YouTube, like this video, favorite it, subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that kind of stuff. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right. Now, I was just wondering, is there any way, impress me, is there any way you can bring this back to the law other than just, these are criminal acts that are happening in these shows? It's basically Saw-like contraptions almost. Are there any other legal themes that you think you can apply it to, or maybe there's not much to talk about?
Yeah, I think Wee's got something.
Well, so for the contestants in Squid Game, when they enter this, they have to sign a contract that basically states that they have to compete in the game, number one. Number two, if they stop playing the game, they're going to be terminated. And number three, the other condition is that the games can be terminated themselves if a majority of the players agree. And so this kind of brings up contract law and whether or not people can consent to illegal activity,
right.
If they're if the contract is valid, if they're under duress, which arguably financial duress, maybe not necessarily they have a gun pointed at their head kind of thing. But yeah, it's just do
they sign this contract before the very first game, or
I believe so.
They just don't read the terms and conditions when you go to a new Apple update or something?
It was
which brings another issue, right? Because they do sign it beforehand, before they get there, and then that's how they end up going to the game. And then once they realize, they're like, oh shit, and then there's the whole vote of whether or not they should continue to play, right?
Or they're not sure what terminated means, and you know what I mean? You
it's
can
not
read
clearly
that
defined or interpretation.
Yeah,
right.
so that sounds potentially
sounds
voidable,
like
I guess.
firing.
Well, and this is all
Unenforceable.
in the lens of U.S. contract law. I mean, none of us are experts
In Korean
in
contract
Korean
law, yeah.
law, and now that you mentioned Saw as well, that kind of entered my mind too, and I was thinking, these people many of them have reason to
strike back at like society or something.
Yeah,
Or
well, I think the creators of the
Jigsaw?
game, and later on, it is revealed that there are like these foreign investors who
Right.
are watching this for entertainment.
the best part of the show.
Right?
Wonderful acting. That section.
Right. And they're all fluent in English.
That's true.
But
They still say it weird.
I don't think they're all fluent in English. But yeah, so it is kind of like the illegality of these investors, watching a game that is killing people, is just another outside of contract topic. That can bring it to the law too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything you have?
So
You don't have to have anything. We can.
no,
just,
so I think
have
mean
one.
I
We all
could,
have one.
Yeah, there's the law touches everything, and that's what the whole purpose of these episodes are.
Yeah.
Somewhat. I could get into the criminal law stuff, but really I think the main questions I would have in terms of legality and the law touching on Alice in Borderland is how can they bring suit, or have they brought suit, or should they bring suit to Squid Game for copying them? Essentially, it plays out very similarly. There's slight differences. Yeah, sure, the games are a little bit childlike and easier and less, intriguing, but it's something to ponder, I would think.
Hey.
Yeah, well, I think now that you're bringing up copying, like both of these shows are not really like new ideas, novel ideas.
Well,
I mean, the idea of people
Alice in
being pitted.
Borderland was a novel. I mean, it was a novel idea in a manga.
Oh my god.
I don't know if mangas are really novels, but
Maybe it was a visual novel. It was a manga.
they're just not the first.
Right. There's legit battle royale
Right.
where these teenagers, like these kids in high school are, and I forget.
It's Japanese.
It's Japanese, okay. These high schoolers are all like pitted against each other. It's like Hunger Games essentially,
Yeah.
which is not novel at all because of battle royale.
Right, and maybe that for another episode we could talk about Hunger Games versus Battle Royale because that was a big
that's
controversy
interesting,
too
yeah.
for a lot of people who were familiar with Battle Royale already, and Hunger Games came out and they're like, "This is a ripoff."
They're like, what the hell? Yeah.
But
Which
that's-
was amazing. It was super gory and yeah.
yeah.
That's more like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like a bunch of people like that. Their aim is to kill each other, right?
Yeah.
Whereas these two, it's like some not higher power, but someone in control is killing them,
Right.
and they're not necessarily. Sometimes they're trying to kill each other. Maybe. I mean, yeah, they are.
I think they're put in situations
but,
where they
yeah.
have to kill each other,
Right. Exactly. It's
for
not
their own
really-
survival.
Exactly.
Like they're not just out
I
there.
mean, I guess
killing.
Battle Royale, they're also for their own survival, but
Right.
But it's like just, I guess the aim there is kill this person, rather than play these games and try to survive.
Right.
A little different,
Yeah.
but
Motivations might be different, but
yeah,
similar.
sure. Yeah. Okay, who wants to close first?
I could close. I didn't mention too many games. There's a lot of games that are seen on the screen in Alice in Borderland. One of my favorite episodes included a game called Tag, and they get into a group of these friends get into this game venue, because throughout Tokyo you kind of have to go to different places where you see that there's a game that's going to start in however many hours or whatever. So they show up to this apartment complex that has corridors that all face the inside, and it's all open, so you could essentially see every floor. Doors are all locked, but the players could see each other on each floor, and it's not that tall. It's like 10 stories or whatever. And the game of Tag is essentially a active shooter situation, which is crazy because it's like they paint it out to be, and which it is obviously, but they paint it out to be such a horrifying, scary situation, rightfully so. And these characters are running for their lives. They're trying not to get tagged, shot by this guy in a horse mask. Scary as hell. I don't know how he sees them, but he's able to do that. It's a crazy episode. A lot of the characters you kind of see a little bit more of how they think, how they act, and how they play the game. It just leads for good television, and that's just one example out of all the other episodes where each game is unique and tests different things. Like I mentioned, the different suits. There's just a variety of games that they play, and these characters of how they think and how they act in certain situations that make this show exciting.
Okay. Squid Game?
I think to bring up another game from Squid Game in the second, I don't know if it's the second episode, but the second game that they play, it's to do with this traditional Korean candy that's called dalgona. Oh. And there's shapes that are kind of pressed into it. So either circle, triangle, star, or an umbrella. And the purpose of the game is to carve out those shapes and separate it from the rest of the larger candy. And obviously if you break the shape or you don't do it in time, you're gonna be killed.
All the ones with the umbrella are like, oh fuck.
Right, basically.
Like,
yeah,
you see it and they're just like, oh man, I'm never gonna
but the show, as popular as it was, it not only introduced people around the world to Asian media and Korean dramas and things like that. It really kind of spread Korean culture even more, because the sales of that dalgona candy just like skyrocketed.
Oh, I could imagine everybody recreating that.
Right,
well, not like killing people, but like recreating the game, and
Yeah, so
we should do that.
Mr. Beast did that, didn't he?
Yeah, Mr. Beast did do his own Squid Game challenge for people to win. Obviously not killing them, but
that we know of.
Right. Yeah, could have been off screen, but yeah, just the popularity of this show, Squid Game, has had so many impacts worldwide for a lot of Asian media, and I really appreciate that. Just because there's so much untapped, I think, from just English-speaking media that a lot of us are familiar with here in the U.S. And just globally, like Hollywood has such a hold on the world, and to finally see a show from Asia really like
blowing up.
It's just nice to see.
Yeah. All right. Well argued on both sides here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
I will say, it might just come down to personal preferences or feelings. I liked Squid Game, but I didn't really feel like blown away by it like everyone was, or like obsessed with it like everyone was. But I
was pretty blown away by it.
Alice in Borderland, on the other hand, I found to be mostly just senseless violence with mediocre characters and nothing really interesting to say, so I'm going to give it to Squid Game.
That was a twist. Almost as surprising as dyeing your hair red.
Which I think you considered. So,
we might have to do an appeal. Who knows?
It was too cool. So in that event, I'm going to give it to Squid Game. And
you like Alice in Borderland. You gifted me the manga.
Before I had seen it.
Okay.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and have a good time.
She's going to dye his hair red
Good
right
time.
Right. We could all dye our head red.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.